Hi folks, and welcome back to a Bunch of Punts podcast. Absolutely delighted to be here this evening recording our very first, our official first episode. Really excited to bring it out to all the listeners. Thank you so much for everyone that's been engaging on the social media. John has created his own TikTok following there as well, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point. But no, look, really exciting. We've got the draft tomorrow, Thursday in Detroit, or Friday early doors here in the UK. I know all the boys are excited, and I'll be staying up for it. A few extra shots in the coffee. I can imagine at Thursday during working hours. But no, look, really excited. What we want to do is bring you our official A Bunch of Punts podcast mock draft. We're going to run through our top 10. Keep it fairly simple, keep it light-hearted, and then you can let us know if you think we're right, we're wrong, we're miles off, or we're spot on. You can get back in touch and keep us updated. First and foremost, before we get into some recent news within the NFL, I'm going to hand over to Smithy, our social media expert. He's going to tell you a little bit about our socials and where you can find us.
Expert, it's a very generous title, I have to say. Now, look, I think the socials have been going well the last sort of couple of weeks. Slowly starting to increase our followers, which is great on TikTok and Instagram. But lots of engagement, lots of views on the content we're putting out there, some commentary from people as well, which is great. You've mentioned John's cult. John, I don't know what you're doing, mate, but they're mad for you. So you're going to have to put out some more content for us. But it's really, really good. Like we said from day one, we want to grow our community and engage with as many people as possible. So we really appreciate the people chipping in with comments on our posts. I do want to give a shout out to, I think, who's been probably our number one engaged sort of follower so far, and that is Luke on TikTok. So Luke, thanks very much, mate, for getting involved. Clearly knows his ball, and is commenting, regularly on our posts, which is great. So in terms of how you can find us, the podcast will be going out on your usual Apple Podcasts and Spotify, along with YouTube. And the socials, you can check us out on TikTok and Instagram, at A Bunch of Punts, and at A Bunch of Punts podcast on Instagram. So, yeah, hold tight for more content in between episodes.
Fantastic, John. What's going on? Why are you blown up? Is this Steelers Nation taking notice of the big man?
I'd like to say it was, Lewis, but the reality is it's probably a bunch of wee guys from my football training that have taken the mic. But a few of them might be getting dropped on Sunday, and that might quieten them down for a wee bit. But listen, I can't remember the saying, something to do with any engagement's good engagement. So yeah, keep it coming.
Any publicity is good publicity, mate. Brilliant.
I'll take it, mate. Considering we've all put a bit of content out there so far, you clearly are the most favoured content creator at the moment. So
the housewife's favourite, we're going to start calling you, John.
That's it. I think I liked it. Someone commented about my hairstyle, so I think that's
fresh trim. I think it was, mate.
Good taste in the stubble look.
Superb. No, listen, let's get right into it then. The news, first and foremost, that obviously it was a few days ago now, but Devonta Smith signed a $51 million deal through to 2028 with the Philadelphia Eagles. A big contract, absolutely. I suppose for me, I'll get your thoughts on it, gents, but I think that sets the tone for other wide receivers out there in terms of that wide receiver market. They're all always vying for the top deal or getting the best out of their contract as they can. But that's one for me that really sets the tone with the likes of your CeeDee Lamb, your Brandon Ayuk's, etc. How do you feel that's going to kind of affect the market around the place then, Danzo?
Yeah, like you said, it's going to have a massive effect, and it does set the tone. Fantastic contract for him. I think it's also good for the Eagles as well. He's a cracking wee player in there with AJ Brown, and he's a quality that they need, who still has progression within him as well. Hopefully now he's got his contract, he can start pushing towards that elite bracket. But yeah, like you said, it's a massive tone setter for the whole league. There's a few wide receivers out there going to be looking for contracts soon as well, who are in his bracket or approaching his bracket. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting period for the wide receivers soon.
And you mentioned AJ Brown there. I suppose it's if we're all going to be our own GM or team, A Bunch of Punts is going to be its GMs or a few GMs this evening when it comes to a mock draft. I suppose their job is made difficult with the salary cap, making sure you're able to keep your stars, but also keeping that kind of peace within your roster, isn't it? So you've got the likes of AJ Brown, who is wide receiver 1 for the Eagles. It's really important to keep guys like that happy as well, because it's not just targets they want, they also want paid at the end of the day. So, Smithy, what's your thoughts on that? Does that kind of keep the peace there at all, or what's your thinking when it comes to AJ Brown as well?
Yeah, I think it certainly sets a precedent, doesn't it? You know, I think he's going to be wanting to follow suit. I mean, I try not to sort of like get too tied up on the money side of things, because it's salary cap and all that type of stuff. I don't really understand it. I just think you've got to pay your players. And he's definitely a player that contributes to the team. And I think that's really important, that you've got to get out there early, pay the man for the job he's doing for you. You want to keep him happy. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And too often than not now, you see players holding out for contracts, not being happy with franchise tags. You can see what's going on over in the 49ers as well. So fair play to the Eagles for getting the job done.
Absolutely. Again, big trades already happening around the league, kind of seeing teams start to vie for position, and that's probably through a little bit of a spanner in the works for us when it comes to thinking about teams that are maybe hoping to pick up a quarterback in the draft. Zach Wilson, certainly a housewife's favourite if you go by the rumours, has been traded to the Denver Broncos. What's your thoughts on that then, John? A quarterback that's again from that particular draft that's not staying with the team that drafted him.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it, Lewis? I actually thought maybe that was all the big trades done, and maybe that's my naivety of the draft. I've only been watching it now for a couple of years, but having looked into that trade today, I can see that actually things can go right to the wire, and things can get moved right before the first numbers get called. So in terms of it as a trade, I think, it just goes to show all the analysis that goes into these picks, all the research and thought process behind it. And if you look at some of the most recent quarterbacks in the last couple of drafts and where they are now, and even what they've achieved, Trevor Lawrence is an example as well. I thought he was going to be an absolute game changer in the league, and he didn't really set the heather on fire, so to speak, yet. So it's an interesting trade. I wonder what the Broncos will do next in terms of their picks this year as well.
Absolutely. I think for yourself, Smithy, is a guy that's teams really likely to pick a quarterback, or it probably is. Let's be honest, it's kind of there's no secret the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams. It's almost that little thing in the back of your mind, perhaps, that picking quarterbacks isn't easy. You know, when you think of the same draft where Justin Fields went, Mac Jones, etc., it's so hard to evaluate these guys and kind of understand what that may look like as a prospect when it comes to making it up and the step up into the big leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something I put out on TikTok only just recently. You just don't know what these guys are going to do until they get the league and start taking snaps for their team. I think that year, that 2021 year, you think there's 4 now have moved on to secondary teams. Only one, Trevor Lawrence, who's still at the Jags. I kind of see like similarities to this year's draft. If you think you've got the one standout guy in Caleb Williams who looks to be a talent above the rest, and the other sort of 4 or 5, you just kind of think, are they any good? You know, where they at? You've got potentially one guy who's supposed to be number 2 behind Caleb Williams, potentially fall in, down the draft and stuff. So you just really don't know until they're there. And they land in spots and where they place and what the players around and what the coaching staff is. You just don't know where these players are going to come out with.
Yeah.
It's always, sorry, Lewis, it's always my thing of saying these guys are drastically overvalued coming out of college. And it's tough on them, I think, more than anything. The hype train gets rolling, all these guys, because college football is obviously so massive over there. The hype train just gets rolling, they big these people up, and then they get into this professional league where guys are doing this, 3, 4, 5 days a week before their games, and it's hardcore. And I think they really do struggle to develop any further once they get in there, and it is only really the elite few that do get to progress further on. And landing position's massive. For Zach Wilson, the Jets wasn't a great fit for him, I don't think. And that shows by them then bringing Rodgers in as well. They knew it wasn't working out with him. It was tough with the scheme or whatever it may be, the whole thing. But yeah, it's like I say, overvaluing is hurting these guys individually, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, that's definitely what happened, isn't it, with him? You know, they overvalued him. I think if people were looking back now, they'd go, why was he taken so high? He was playing at BYU. He had no competition, you know, within his conference there. He's got all day protected to throw the ball and do what he wants. He's obviously got a magical arm and stuff like that, but it's very different. So, yeah, good luck to him. I'd be interested to see whether that changes the Broncos draft strategy QB wise now, or whether they still maybe go in for Bo Nix or for someone else later on.
That's what the point I was going to come on to as well. For yourself, Danzo, obviously being a Saints fan, he's out there now with Sean Payton. His system's pretty unique when it comes to running an offense, and I think there's a bit of pressure on both of them to make this work, isn't there? Because if it doesn't work here for Zach Wilson, what does the NFL career look like? Again, Sean Payton probably needs to see. You need to see some real improvements in terms of the Denver Broncos this season again for him to keep getting the kind of praise that's been heaped on him for so long.
Definitely. I think for Zach Wilson, he's probably one of the better coaches out there that he could have went to for this next step. We obviously know he had somebody very special in Breeze, but Breeze had his issues as well along the way. So hopefully he can pull him up and start getting him to play the way that everybody thought he could when he was drafted. For Sean Payton, there definitely was improvements last year from them. They've still got, I know Judy's away now, but they've still got Cortland Sutherland, who's a good wide receiver there. Javonte Williams is a guy I like as a running back. They've got a couple of pieces there. They've always got a strong defence in Denver. So, yeah, I think that progression will continue. It's just how far they get. But, yeah, it's crucial years for both of them this year.
Massive for Sean Payton, I think.
Yeah, I think especially with some of those jerseys that you've evaluated as well, Smithy, they'll need to be putting on a show to get bums on seats out there in Mile High. Going from kind of keeping on the kind of quarterback kind of vein there, Matt Ryan's officially announced his retirement. Probably kind of slipped under the radar that he didn't have a team last year after situation with the Colts didn't go so well. For me, that's not a slight on Matt Ryan. I think you've seen that with really good quarterbacks down the years. They kind of don't finish with the team that they were drafted to, or the team that they've been there for so long, and they move on. It doesn't go to plan. But obviously, he's commentating for CBS on the NFL last year, so probably a lot of people probably thought this was already done. But obviously, it was a really nice video for Matt Ryan to come out and probably highlight some of the highs in his career. We spoke at length about the kind of the opportunity Aaron Donald got to go out on a high with winning the Super Bowl. There's so many good top class players in the NFL don't walk away with a ring. Matt Ryan was very close, but kind of having watched the NFL for a number of years, what's your kind of thoughts on Matt Ryan's career? Is he a Hall of Famer? I suppose is probably the question I want to pose to you boys.
On you go, mate.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure about Hall of Fame. I don't know. I just think if he got over the line that year, got himself a Super Bowl, then he'd have a better chance on that. And also stat-wise, I was listening to around the NFL, and they had the same sort of conversation. One of the things they were saying as well is, you know, if he'd had a better sort of last couple of years with the Colts, maybe hit 400 touchdowns, career touchdowns, maybe that might have got him over the line. But for me, one of the things that sort of stands out is how good have the Falcons been since he's left. They've been in sort of QB purgatory, haven't they? And that kind of shows you that actually you have a stable QB who will be steady every single year for you. And if you get the right talent around him, who knows where they go. But his standout year is definitely 2016, his MVP year. And I was just having a read now. That year, he led the league in virtually every big play category, from yards per attempt to plays over 40 yards to completion percentage over 20 yards. And he finished with 4,944 yards, 38 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. And that was before the Super Bowl. That's an unbelievable year, isn't it? That. So I think he's a brilliant player, brilliant quarterback, franchise QB. through and through. Whether he's Hall of Famer or not, I'm not sure, but certainly a miss from the Falcons.
Yeah, I agree. Really good player. I think he had some tough years with the Falcons. He had some good years that he maybe should have done a bit better as well. Stats are out there. You can see he's been reasonably consistent for them for years now. So, yeah, Hall of Fame's a push for me, but definitely a very good NFL player.
What I would say, if he'd been a franchise QB for Chicago, there'd be statues outside Soldier Fields of him, because we're yet to have a QB over 4,000 yards. So that's the measuring stick. Like I think he's been great, but good career for him.
That's it. I think.
Sorry,
on you go.
I was just going to say, I think Chicago might have went and found some way of ruining it, to be honest with you, Smithy. They do that with quarterbacks, don't they?
Shots fired there, John. Shots fired, mate. I'm going to remember that one,
John, anytime you're going to jump in and get on the Bears, mate,
drawing the line. I think that's it's clearly because I'm English, that is. I can see what's going on here, boys. We've got three Scots guys. Got one man representing the nation on his own.
Definitely.
I think, probably what would sum it up is any of the teams that are looking for a quarterback, they would probably settle for a Matt Ryan. I think they'd be really happy with a Matt Ryan, wouldn't they? If they could draft a guy of his calibre, someone that's been in the NFL for 15 seasons. Probably gets a little bit of hate, or not hate, but probably gets looked down a little bit because of the way that Super Bowl ended. But, it's not just all on your quarterback. You've got a defence there that has to get a stop. Kyle Shanahan was absolutely soaking behind the ears with some of the play calling when you watch that back now. But I'll still have nightmares of some of the running all over the Packers that he done in the playoffs as well. Hi folks, and welcome to the very first official A Bunch of Punts mock draft. Myself and the gents are going to run through our top 10 picks. We're going to do a bit of a round robin to introduce our picks, keep everyone on their toes. But first and foremost, before we get into that, just a little bit about what the draft is for us. I know me and the guys are all excited for a late night or early morning Friday watching the TV. Can't wait to see the Packers make a pick. But I suppose for me, it's the reason that keeps the NFL so competitive. In normal years, not this year, of course, the very worst team in the NFL gets to pick what we're led to believe is going to be the best player coming out of college that year, and that's what keeps the league so competitive. It's something that probably most other sports would make very boring, Smithy. But I know you've got your own opinion on why it's so good. So take it away.
It's quite simple. I'm a Bears fan. This is where we come alive, right? Last 2 years, you've had number one overall pick, but I think it's. I can't wait. I'm really excited about it, and I said it before. Like the NFL draft, if you think about the core procedure, what it actually is, it's probably an exercise that could just be completed with GM sitting at home having a cup of tea on a laptop. But it's not. It's the NFL. They know how to market their product. They blow it up. It's spoke about for weeks and months. It's a live event. You have thousands of people come to it. People host draft parties at home. It's on social media. It's on like every TV program, and they make it as exciting as possible. And the players buy into it, the coaches buy into it. I just think it's huge drama. I'm all for it. So I'm absolutely buzzing. I can't wait for it. I've got a day off work on Friday, so I don't care if I'm up all night. And the Bears have 2 picks in the first 10 picks, so it's easy for me.
Absolutely, I think. When you think about some of the NFL draft drama that we've seen over the years, you've had the situation with Eli Manning and the Chargers, and if you've never seen that, if you're new to the NFL, definitely go and check that out. You've had Aaron Rodgers sitting in that draft room expecting to go first or second overall, sat there quite long. Danny, any mental drafts that stand out to you?
Oh, not particularly. I tend to get caught up in the moment of them all, and the excitement and the drama. Just really echoing what you guys say. It's a massive event, and it's brilliant to watch, and the drama and the trades flying through, and who's going to get picked next, and look at them putting the camera on the poor person that's sitting there too long, and it's brilliant. It's a brilliant night, but. Yeah, a late night at the same time, but like you say, it keeps it competitive. It's the edge in the NFL that no other sport really has, or from a draft perspective, especially for us in the UK. We're used to seeing players just come through with a club that they've trained with and moving on from there. So, yeah, the fact that these players can go into this draft, have no idea where they're going to play, they could be anywhere in the country, and it's really just on that call that comes through to eventually Roger Goddard and they call their name. Yeah, it's a brilliant night and full of drama. I love it.
And John, you've got quite a unique perspective because your first NFL draft would have been probably during the pandemic, so you'll have seen all the coaches sitting at home, TV cameras in there, Bill Belichick's dog making the pick for the Patriots, etc. What's your experience been of the draft so far?
Do you know, it's so true. Our first experience of it was quite tame and strange, but actually the draft is, the easiest way to put it is, it's just so cool. It's just such a cool thing that happens in sport. Imagine it in football in the UK, or soccer, to our American fans. Imagine if players under the age of 25 were all just put into a room and teams got to pick who they wanted. It's just really, really cool. And for me,
PE at school, isn't it?
That's it. For me, this is like Hollywood. This is where you see the movie, the person's worked really hard at college, and this is them getting their big moment and their big break. How it continues thereafter, obviously, and we get to talk about every week. But I think it's just a really, really cool thing. Looking forward to it.
No, I love that
Danzo
analogy.
mentioned about. I was going to say, Danzo mentioned about how they capture people. Was it CD Lamb who got caught on camera and he had two phones, and that his girlfriend went to grab the phone off him. He was like, snatched it back off him really quickly. So all those little moments I think are brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy as well, John, because like you have said, it's just a young guy wakes up having worked so hard in his professional career, the athleticism of it, the amount of time that goes into the practices and learning playbooks, etc., being elite within the country, and then they just wake up one day and the phone rings and they don't know whether or not they're going to Wisconsin or they're going to go to LA. And I know which one I'd probably rather go to, but you've got that aspect of it, haven't you, where you just don't know where these guys are going to end up. I mean, it's almost like Lionel Messi being picked first for East Kilbride or something, isn't it, for your football team, John, and going from there?
Yeah, it's really cool, as I say. And also, look, at football, if we relate it back to soccer again, how many young talents do you see that you think is going to be the next big thing that never become it? And that's what this is in the NFL. You know, you see that number one pick, and as I say, I'm sure the Bears will find a way of mucking that up this year. And it never comes to fruition. So, as I say, it's really good.
I'm keeping a note of all these shots, John. That's two now.
Well, listen,
make of that.
Listen, let's get right into it, gents. We're going to be pretty ceremonial here. We're going to hand off to Smithy, who's going to take us through the first pick for the Chicago Bears. Like I say, we'll run round each of the gents getting a pick, keeping everybody on their toes. They don't know who's going to be drafted, and we'll each give our thoughts on that player and the team that they're going to. So without further ado, Smithy, you're on the clock, mate.
It's not going to take long to pick this one, boys. I think it's the least kept secret in whole of football. With the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, my Chicago Bears, selecting Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC. So, I mean, I could talk about Caleb Williams all day. I'm hugely excited about the prospect of him being a franchise changer for the Chicago Bears. And I suppose one of the things I've been really impressed about, the more I've sort of read about it and all that type of stuff, is how the Bears have actually gone about making the assessment on the player. Because they've had the number one pick for ages, and there's been talk about, like, are they going to take him? You know, what's his character issues like? He paints his nails, he has a little cry to his mum and stuff. Is that going to be an issue with the locker room? Bearing in mind they've had Justin Fields, who's a top pro and that type of thing. And there's two things, if I break it down. The first off is obviously that from a player perspective, he's clearly super talented. You know, I think you could watch his tape and they probably tick that off very, very early doors to say he can play. He's got super talent, and I think he'd be a success in the league from that side of things. You know, we talk about player comps. You know, they throw out sort of like Patrick Mahomes there as a possible comp, and that's huge, and a bit of a tall order to put on a player. But if you do watch his tapes, you can see Mahomes in him, the way he sort of breaks the pocket, makes off-platform throws, keeps his eye downfield when he's scrambling, and just launches these absolute rockets from all over the field into ridiculous tight windows for his. He's an absolute playmaker from that side of things. But likewise, he can play from the pocket as well. And the other sort of comp, and I've said this to you before, that I really love, just to wind you up, Lewis, is Aaron Rodgers, and the way he can sit in the pocket, sense danger, break the pocket, reset, keep his eyes downfield, pass over the middle of the field. He's got all the clubs in the bag. He can make all the throws, deep, touch on the ball, ridiculous arm angles. So he's super talented. So it's a no-brainer from a talent perspective. And I think the Bears, what they needed to do was assess the player and what the player was like. Has he got the right stuff between his ears? And their process in terms of doing that has been really impressive. And not to go too much into detail of it. So it started at the combine. Then his pro day. They spent 3 days of him. First day, they took him out for dinner. They invited his USC teammates along to dinner at some swanky club in Hollywood, some private club. Wanted to sort of see how he engaged with his existing teammates. They then spent the day of him, specifically of him in the classroom, on the whiteboard, watching tape, etc. And then obviously had his pro day. And then to complete the evaluation, they brought him over to Chicago and Hallis Hall for his medicals, that type of stuff. They then took him out for dinner again. This time they invited key players from the Bears, so DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, TJ Edwards, just to sort of see how he'd interact with now new teammates. And the feedback they've had has just been unbelievable all round in terms of, his leadership, how he engaged with his teammates. I think one of the comments that Ryan Poles made, which might seem sort of juvenile, was the fact that he didn't pick his phone up for 3 hours during these juries. So for anybody to not look at their phone for 3 hours shows you everything and how engaged they are for it. And just lastly, I think around the character side of things, if you look at, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch The Pivot, the podcast with Ryan Clark, the stuff he sort of says about this guy is a well put together young man, and he is driven to be the most successful football player in the history of the game. And that sounds very tall, yet to take a snap, but I'm all for it. I love his confidence. I love his belief. I love his balance with arrogance. I absolutely can't wait. The Bears have got to get it right this time, because I can't cope with them messing up, to John's point again. And if he could just go and beat Green Bay, he's going to be a hero. So number one pick, super excited. And I can't wait.
Brilliant. Thought we were doing a Bears podcast there, but no, Smithy.
Sorry, mate. You set me off. So
your passion shines through from it, mate. Really appreciate that. No, I agree with a lot of what you said. The off-platform throws is probably the reason why he's been likened to the likes of Mahomes and Rodgers. I mean, if he's a quarter of the quarterback that those two are, he'll still be a very, very good player in the NFL. I think one of the key points, and probably a question I'll throw back at you, is this is a guy that's already a millionaire. This is the guy that's came through the college with the NIL deals. How do you feel about that? And maybe not the fact that he never chose to kind of go to the combine and for the NFL as well.
I mean, I've got no problem at all. I mean, first off, the combine, he went to the combine, he didn't test. But if you know you are going to you're evaluated as a top talent in the draft, then why should you go hand over your medical information to teams that are never going to be able to draft you in the first place? Like, you wouldn't go hand out your medical record, Lewis, to people that you don't know. So I've got no problem with that at all. And I think that's probably something we're going to see more and more. And it wasn't just him who's not tested as well. And as for the money thing, I think that can only be a positive for him. He's already a millionaire, right? So you know that when he gets paid, that it's not going to change him. It's not going to change his priorities and his goals, because he's already a millionaire and he can stay focused on football. So I think it's actually a positive from that side of things. And also how he handles it. If you look at him, like, he's not in the press or anything loads. He's not going out in nightclubs at all. He does his sponsorship. He focuses on his job. I just think like he's different. I generally think he's a different prospect to what we've seen come out in the draft before. So happy he's a Bear.
I think it's really funny to listen to you getting all defensive about him there, Smithy. He's already one of your own, isn't he? I've got a quick question for you, mate, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I've heard you saying quite a lot of similarities when you drafted Justin Fields. So I think you've alluded to the fact that there is some differences there, but what would you say is the key differences in terms of your excitement when you took Fields to this pick?
Yeah, it's a good question, mate. I think the main difference is Fields was the fourth QB off the board and pick number 11. We mentioned at the start of the draft around that 2021 year, there was one clear guy, Trevor Lawrence, and the rest were kind of here or there. And Justin Fields was supposed to be QB2 and fell, probably a bit like Drake May's going to do. That's not the case with Caleb Williams. He's the unanimous number one prospect in the whole draft out of every single player there, and the number one QB. And if you listen to anybody who's evaluating him, there's a clear gap between him and the next second player. So that's the reason for my excitement levels is that the Bears should have no right to sort of draft this guy, but thankfully the Panthers are absolute shite. So thanks very much. Thanks very much for them putting us in the position. So look, if it doesn't work out in 4 years' time, we're at this draft again. Like I'll probably look like you, mate. I'll have no hair. I'll probably have a fresh trim like you, pal. So I'm hoping I can keep me looks.
Brilliant. Danny, you're next on the clock, mate. We've had enough of the Caleb Williams propaganda. Danzo, you're up. Commanders are on the clock, mate.
I think it's another lock for me and Jaden Daniels. I think they're in obvious need of a QB. They have done for probably a couple of years now. I think he'll fit in with Cliff Kingsbury in there. The way he goes, he can throw a bit, he can run a bit. I think not the same kind of stature, although Daniels does look as though he has a slight frame. But we look what Kingsbury did with Murray when he drafted him at the Cardinals. He went for that same kind of guy that has that kind of power to run forward and through the line, but can also throw. I think Murray's height's always going to be an issue with that. But Daniels is a good bit taller than him and hopefully can create those angles that'll allow him to be effective in the throw. So yeah, I think it's a lock. I think it's a good fit. I think they're both going to work together pretty well.
Absolutely, I agree. For me, I think that's almost locked in. Having said that, obviously news this week. I think his agent was pretty unhappy that the Commanders decided to take quite a few quarterbacks out for dinner, perhaps at the same time as well. So I mean, you can read into that, but again, it's an extension of the player, isn't it? When that happens, it's your representation. Again, I think he's a quarterback that ticks all the boxes. I think he's pretty accurate. He's got the athleticism. He can run the ball. He's had quite a few running touchdowns, but he's played quite a number of seasons in college, isn't he? I think he's been the starter for is it 5 seasons? Is that correct?
Yeah, 23. I think he is.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this to you off air, but one guy that I've taken quite a bit of notice on is Dan Orlovsky. Based on some of the kind of feedback he gave about Jordan Love and in terms of how actual quarterbacks that have played the game evaluate other quarterbacks. And he said Jaden Daniels' biggest strength was the kind of pre-snap read and how quick he was to work that out. So again, something that's sort of some kind of inside information that these experts are kind of thrown out. And obviously we've had Brian Kelly, former Notre Dame head coach, now at LSU. He's pretty much leaked it as well, isn't it? That he's going to the Commanders there as well. So I quite like that pick. John, what about yourself? You any thoughts on that one?
I think the guy is the second best player in the draft. That's the reality. I don't think Drake May comes near him. I know that's the bit that's up for debate here, but he threw 40 touchdowns last season. And I think given his experience, they should say 5 years in college, and he fits into that roster just now in terms of the amount of vets that they've got in there at the moment. So I think if that's who they pick, because as we know the draft can do crazy things, I think it's a sign of their intent this year that they want to win now. So that's my thoughts on it.
Brilliant. I'm up next, drafting for the New England Patriots. I've got Bill Belichick out the hot seat. It's now over to me to draft the next quarterback for the Patriots. I think the Patriots take Drake May. Having said that, I think if Drake May's not there and the Commanders have a change of heart, I think that's possibly where a trade could come in here in the draft. Possibly the Vikings, maybe the Giants, we don't know. But again, kind of if you're talking about similar styles, he's been linked to kind of Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, a bigger guy. Again, has the size, the arm, the speed, which we all look for now in quarterbacks. I think that needs to be a given for these guys, where perhaps it didn't have to be in the past. You didn't have to be able to run a quick 40. If you look at guys like Big Ben's jersey hanging up behind John, I'd be interested to see his 40. But no, I think he's got that talent. Coming out of North Carolina, I think the only possible thing that makes this an issue for the Patriots, if someone comes in with crazy draft capital, or if he's not on the board here at pick number 3, could we even see the Patriots maybe trade up to 2 just to make sure that they get the guy that they want? Because again, they've had him out for steak dinners, etc. They've got on really well. It's a new era in New England, and I think they want to start that off on the front foot with a new quarterback. What's your thoughts on that, gents?
Yep, it's where it runs for me. Drake May to the Patriots. Not seen a massive amount. I think he's still got a lot of work to do. Like we're saying about Daniels in his 5 years, I think they always say, or you always hear, you let the game slow down. The game slows down for you. I think for Daniels that could already be the case. With Drake May, I don't think it will be. I think he's still got a lot to do. It'll take some settling in there, but yeah, they're really picking the best of the rest, I think, the Pats, so it's just whoever they like better. But I think that will be me.
I'm not sure here. This is a really interesting pick for me. I think this, where again, things could go a bit crazy, and it all depends on what black arts the Patriots want to play, because they've obviously mastered that in the past. I think they've got so many holes across their team, and that's really good collateral that they can play with. And I also think Drake May, he's got a lot of work to do in terms of improving his game, his decision making, etc. And I watched some of his combine footage, and it just looked a bit strange at times when they hand the ball off his body movement and things like that. It's maybe not a technical term to use here, right? But it just didn't look to be the smoothest. So if the Patriots want to try and start making improvements now, I think they give up Drake May and use the draft capital to fill holes, and then hope that they can pick up a better quarterback maybe next year. If they're happy to maybe not have a great season again, which I know is a bit of a silly statement to make, but it is the Patriots. They're with the Steelers, the most successful team in the NFL. Then, so potentially they actually take him just now and they sit on him for a couple of years and get him better, and then get back to where they probably think they should be. So I think this could get really interesting, this pick. And obviously, as you've already alluded to, Lewis, how much do the Vikings maybe want him as well?
I think you're right. On you go, Smithy, on you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just on Drake May, I think he's a sleeper in this draft, honestly. I think if you look at him, he is a prototypical build of a quarterback, isn't he? Very much cut from the same cloth as Justin Herbert in that sort of instance. And I think he's a ridiculous athlete, explosive sort of arm on him. But to John's point, his weaknesses probably are that he is a bit reckless at times. Probably fires the ball in a bit too much, misses a few layups and stuff. But that probably reminds me when you kind of hear that sort of stuff of what Josh Allen was like when he came in the league. If you remember, like Josh Allen, you look at him and you're like, this guy's arm, man, like, he's got an absolute rocket. But he was just that little bit reckless, and then all of a sudden, the right sort of scheme, the right offense around him, the right offensive coordinator, the right sort of coaching, and then look at him from there. So I think he's probably got a higher ceiling than Jayden Daniels personally. But to echo your points, if he's off the board, perhaps the Steelers do trade out and go elsewhere, because I'm not sure they fancy Daniels just because of their needs. They're not ready for that type of quarterback. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think when I'm thinking about that, I think the fact that they've got Jacoby Brissett that's been around the league, I think that's maybe a guy that can help Drake May, and it might be that the first 6-7 weeks of the season he sits and they try and support him with it. But I think he's a guy that can start right away in the NFL, and I think I like that comparison to Josh Allen and maybe how aggressive these young guys are when they are almost that kind of gunslinger, if you want to call it, there as well. Brilliant. Up next, we've got the Arizona Cardinals, John, and again, maybe some controversy at this pick.
Again, there's some argument here to see whether this could be another trade as well, but I think there is need, isn't there, with Brown moving on to Kansas City as well, and be the top receiver last season. So I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably my pick in at number 4 for the Arizona Cardinals. I think key attributes is obviously good hands, and Kyler Murray needs someone there to try and help pick up some of his stats. And I think it's been a hole in the Cardinals team. If you look at their roster just now going into the season, then they definitely could be doing with Marvin Harrison coming in there. I was just looking at his stats earlier on before we joined, and even just if you look at the size of the guy, 6'4", 204 pounds, is probably just what they're needing at the moment. But again, could we see another trade in there as well?
Absolutely. Again, I think this is a possible spot for a trade. I think the Vikings may be coming up for a JJ McCarthy, whose stock seems to be rising at the right time when it comes to this draft. Only a day away. He's got that kind of NFL bloodline or NFL DNA with his dad, and obviously had a successful career. But again, I think the Cardinals do have quite a few picks this year. I think they've got the most ahead of Green Bay. But I think they've got so many spots that they need to fill. I think this could be a necessity because they don't have to go too far down the draft. Even if it was the Giants trading up for a JJ McCarthy, they don't have to slip too far down the draft. And I think we've all seen some of the antics when it comes to the Cardinals about how they like to trade down, trade back up, etc., etc. But again, it's the excitement of the draft. Again, then Smithy, back round to you. Pick number 5, the Chargers.
Yeah, so again, similar to the Cards, really got quite a few needs. Jim Harbaugh's going in there. Looks like almost like a reset, rebuild in terms of getting rid of older talent off the board, the veterans and stuff. So they do have a lot of needs. Wide receiver and probably offensive tackle are the two that stand out to me. I wouldn't be surprised if they did go Joe Alt, left tackle. Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, run heavy offense. So that probably suits that at all. But I do think they take wide receiver here, just because for Justin Herbert's sanity. He needs someone to throw the ball to, and they've obviously got rid of 2 vets and a ball catching running back as well. I know they've got a couple in, haven't they, now from ex-Ravens. Dobbins is in, and I can't remember the other guy.
Edwards.
But yeah, that's it. Yeah, but I think they go wide receiver, and I think that is when we see Malik Neighbours off the board from LSU, who is an unbelievable talent. What specimen of a wide receiver? You think he's broken all the records at LSU, which is we spoke about before. They're at literally a wide receiver factory, aren't they? Think about the players that have come out of there: Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, OBJ, and more. And he's coming out of them, arguably setting the best records there. Explosive player. I just think that is you can just imagine him bursting off the line and Justin Herbert just literally launching it to him because he's so quick. He's gonna beat players, isn't he? So yeah, I think that's the pick for me.
Danny, any thoughts on Malik Neighbours?
Fantastic player. I think that's probably where we drop. I think my next pick would have liked him to fall to them, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think he'll end up a Charger. But he's a cracking player.
Absolutely. For me, I think obviously being likened to LSU, it's an absolute factory. I think this is where Jim Harbaugh has a big advantage this year. He's already spoken about. I mean, if the top 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks, then we are pick number 2 in the draft almost, if you think of it that way. But he's going to have a real insight on these guys, especially the fact that he's seen them, he's played against them, and I think that's where he's got quite a bit of an advantage this year. But I agree. I think it'll be a wide receiver because Justin Herbert, his phone must have been ringing off the hook when you see the likes of Austin Eckler disappear, Mike Williams, and obviously Kieran Allen to your Bears, Smithy. So I think for just to keep Herbert happy, someone has to go in there.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect match between him and Herbert, isn't it? I think I was just reading that Neighbours 50-50 split between where he lined up on the outside or the slot, and led FBS for catches over 20 yards. So he's an explosive playmaker, isn't he? So I think that could be really, really exciting to watch in the league, and maybe fantasy as well.
Spot on.
I think they've got, sorry, just jumping in, Lewis, I think they've got some gaps on their offensive line though, as well. So I think if you see my mock draft that I'll put up in the group chat, I thought they maybe go offensive tackle in here as well.
Is this the one all your TikTok followers are absolutely buzzing about, mate?
That's it, mate, yeah.
Me want John.
So, and there's maybe a little bit of kind of hopeful thinking here, because I want a couple of these wide receivers to still fall further down to help out George Pickens at the Steelers this year. But yeah, I think there's a possibility that they maybe go offensive tackle and improve their offensive line also.
It's a good shout that you've made there about mock draft, mate, because if you see my mock draft, actually had the Bears trading right up to the 5 with the Chargers and taking Marvin Harrison Jr. after the Cards been their pick off to the Vikings. So I'm all for them trading out of that role, that spot.
Wishful thinking, boys. Danzo, you're here with the G-men, as JK knows them. Over to Big Blue. Who's Big Blue picking?
I think they're going to go wide receiver again and take Roma Dunze. It's a position that they require pretty seriously. They've got a few in there as well, but I think if the ball's in their court with Daniel Jones, they need to give him some weapons. What they have there, wide receiver wise, they have been good in the past. I don't think they've got the quality anymore to push that franchise through and help Daniel Jones. So they need someone in there who has the capability to do that. It's risky doing it with a guy coming out of college, but I think Roma Dunze has the traits to do that and hopefully be much like the previous pick, an explosive player for them and start to see them progress. But again, it's another position that I think if they're not getting the man that they want, they could move about because they have got gaps to fill as well, and they've had a couple of down seasons now, and I think that's shown with Barkley leaving them to go to the Eagles and go somewhere so close. So yeah, Roma Dunze in that pick for the Giants.
Again, I think there's been so much talk of the Giants actually potentially trading up. There's probably a lot to be said about them trading back and maybe trying to get some draft capital. Again, you're thinking of teams like the Vikings, where if you're moving back from pick 6 to pick 11 and maybe picking up an extra second rounder or even an extra first rounder there, because teams get quarterback desperate. I think it's a good pick. Roma Dunze, I mean, he looks like the toughest receiver in this draft, doesn't he? He looks like he wants to fight everyone. But no, again, looks robust. Again, just it's that opportunity for maybe teams that maybe want to trade up, or do they want to take a quarterback themselves? Do they take a JJ McCarthy and try and get out of Daniel Jones's deal next year? I think obviously Smithy, when me and you were having a conversation, you kind of alluded to this isn't a guy, or that's not a guy that in Daniel Jones that Brian Daboll drafted. What's your thoughts on that kind of situation in terms of when it comes to the quarterback and for the G-men?
Yeah, I just think if they've made a mistake paying Daniel Jones, then now's your time to sort of get out of it. Go and draft a quarterback that you want. And if I kind of compare where the Giants are at with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, the GM, to where the Bears are at with Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles, because they're both in the same hiring cycle. You can really start to see where the Bears is their team now. They're putting their stamp on that team. Can you say that about the Giants? Is this a Ryan Daboll, Joe Shane sort of team? Obviously, it's got, is that, I don't know, I'm not sure about that answer. And I think that could be the opportunity for them to sort of go, actually, maybe we do take a quarterback. He's our guy. It's our stamp on the team. And it also buys them time because they haven't exactly been putting up trees. And, they're playing in a big market in New York. And if they don't have a successful year, they could be losing their job. So that, not saying that's the right time to sort of draft a quarterback, but that's what people do, is they do think about their own jobs. If it is someone like JJ McCarthy who's really young, perhaps he can sit behind Daniel Jones for a period of time, and then ease him in as and when he's ready, and it could sort of buy them time in their own sort of jobs as well, put their own stamp on a team, and sort of slowly start to transition between that, moving out of Daniel Jones. I mean, I don't know about the money situation, but they could probably cut him, couldn't they, at the end of the year, and just take a hit on that? I don't know, but that's perhaps my thoughts. Going back to Rome Odunze, I mean, brilliant player, isn't he? Like, all three of these guys are awesome. 50-50, my absolute monster. So, it'd be a brilliant pick for them if they do take him.
I really like this guy. I think he's really good. And again, if he's still on the board after the Giants have picked and after the Bears have got their second pick, then I think the Steelers do everything they can to move up there. Because, if you look again at his stats at college, he just get better and better and better every year. And he looks and plays like an elite wide receiver. So I think wherever he lands, he's going to be really, really lucky. I hope he stays in the NFC and doesn't come over our way. And if he manages to go past the Bears and the Giants, then I think we do absolutely everything to try and get him, because he could be a total game changer for us.
Brilliant. Back to myself now. Tennessee Titans are on the clock. Again, I'd love to make it sexy like Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side, and that's where the Titans go here. They take Joe, again, another guy that's got that NFL DNA, NFL bloodline, whatever you prefer, whatever phrase you prefer there. I think the Titans are pretty happy with Will Levis at the moment. Again, it's going to be an interesting year for them as a team. But I think if you can protect his blind side, you're plugging a guy in there that could be 10, 15 years in the NFL again. I think he's 6'9". Is it too tall? I don't know. I wish I was 6'9". I'm only 6. So there's 9 inches missing.
And some more.
But no, I think again, seen quite a bit of him at Notre Dame. Guy's elite, and no surprise that a guy of his talent is going to go in the top 10. Again, could we see this guy go a little higher? Perhaps. It just depends on needs for the team, isn't it? Again, the Chargers is maybe this where you see Jim Harbaugh kind of go back to the advantage of being in college football and picking a guy up that he knows can be elite. I don't know, but where he's fallen to the Titans here, I think it's a no-brainer for them. Any thoughts, anyone on the Tennessee Titans?
Completely agree. I mean, you got to take this guy, haven't you? Could be the cornerstone of your team for years, like you say, protecting that blind side, and he's just an absolute beast. I think his only weaknesses from what I've read are, those power rushes. He could almost topple over a little bit because he's a bit tall, but that's coaching, isn't it? That you can get around that. But brilliant player, like you say, you can't make it much more sexy than that, can you?
Yeah, it's just whether the Chargers take him before that is my thought.
Yeah,
to the point.
It is, because I think he is predominantly elite at run blocking as opposed to pass blocking. Not that he can't pass block, but run blocking is his strength, I think. And we've mentioned about Jim Harbaugh being they've been a run-heavy offense over in the Chargers, so that's the only possibility. But if he falls to the Titans, no-brainer.
John, back to you. You're picking for the Atlanta Falcons. I think they were sweating this week whether or not they were going to get their pick taken off them, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be. The decisions from the committee is going to come down this early before the draft. So pick number 8, Atlanta Falcons. Where are you going with that?
Interesting one, isn't it? I mean, if they still have it, then I think they go edge, and I think Dallas Turner is who they pick in here. I do think there's another potential edge further back, isn't there? The boy from Florida State. So it's whether or not they see value in trading back, because I don't think there's a huge difference between the two players. But it is a position that they need to strengthen. For me, Dallas Turner looks fantastic. He's explosive at getting to his quarterback, and it fills a position there for the Falcons. And yeah, that's my pick at number 8.
Danzo, we fell foul of drafting Kyle Pitts in fantasy over the last few seasons. Kirko Chains has got his tight end. He's got a wide receiver. He's got a very capable running back in Bijan Robinson. I know Dallas Turner was a guy that you spoke about as well. So take it away.
Yeah, I think John's right there. It's splitting hairs between Dallas Turner and Jared Verse. Who they go for, it's who they like better, but I think it will be Dallas Turner. Elite player coming out in that position. It's a lock-in, and like you say, the Falcons definitely are in a position now where they can start to then almost pick best player in a position that they need, because they have a lot of pieces in place now and they can start to push forward. So yeah, definitely it's a need that they require. Dallas Turner coming out probably best in that position in the draft. So yeah, it's a no-brainer for me in that one.
Smithy, we're back to your Bears, mate. You're getting greedy. Pick number 9. Where are you going?
I think go a couple of ways here. To be fair, probably think defensive is the way to go. With the 3 wide receivers off the board, the only one that kind of intrigues me a little bit is Brock Bowers, the tight end. You know, I wouldn't be completely against that if the Bears picked him. We've got 2 tight ends already, but you know, what a player. Plays more of a power slot wide receiver rather than a tight end. And we all know championship winning teams, QB tight end partnership plays pretty well. Just look at the Chiefs and you know, the Pats over the years. But it's high to pick a tight end, I think, at that position. So I think it will be defensive. And between the 2, Jared Verse or the defensive tackle, but I'm going to go defensive tackle in Byron Murphy. And the reason why is because pass rush, there's still some free agents out there that you might be able to pick up later on when you're filling your roster. But to get an explosive free tech is hard to come by, and you can see how they've been paid in the off season. And if you can get one that is very, very good on a rookie contract for 4 years, who's going to be a multiplier to your defense, I think that's massive, and that's how he strikes me. Now he's a little bit on the short side, but he's an absolute beast. He's so powerful. He's quick off the line. He's going to hit those gaps and create disruption in the backfield, which is what you want from a defense when you've got, especially a 4-3 defense. So I think that will be the pick. Player comp wise, I've heard Aaron Donald. Now, if he's half a player Aaron Donald is, I'd be a very happy man. But I do think that's the pick that the Bears will take if they go defensive at that stage.
I think we spoke again about just how disruptive elite guys at that position can be. We spoke about, you mentioned Aaron Donald, you've got Micah Parsons doing it for the Cowboys there as well. Yeah, I wouldn't see any issue with that. Again, is it a possibility that they trade out of that number 9 if a wide receiver's not there for them? I mean, the wide receiver thing for the Bears probably shouldn't get away from them too much. I think DJ Moore's quarterback friendly. Keenan Allen's safe hands if he can stay fit. Cole Kmet's obviously been a top target for Justin Fields whilst he was there, so I don't think the Bears should overlook wide receiver. Do you think if there was a wide receiver still on the board, that's where the Bears would look to at this point?
I think so. I think if Rome Odunze falls there, he's the pick. Because they've mentioned about wanting to give Caleb Williams as much support as possible. You've already mentioned about Keenan Allen's health. He does miss games. God forbid, DJ Moore gets injured and all of a sudden you're throwing to Bill and Bob, third and fourth string. So I think that's a position they could potentially go. And also, you kind of hope the Bears aren't picking this high again next year. So you've got to strike these guys are there. So I think if Rome Odunze is there, then that would be the pick. And then the other areas, you address elsewhere.
Do you not like Brian Thomas Jr.? I think he's probably, after those ones I've picked, he's the next wide receiver up, but it could be a bit high to pick him.
Well, the problem the Bears have is they haven't got a second round pick, and he's probably off the board there. So if you don't take a wide receiver, I think they have to address that position, and it's a deep class, isn't it? But we haven't had great history, or Ryan Poles hasn't had a great history of picking wide receivers in the later rounds. For instance, they passed over Puka Nakua last year. They could have taken him, but they didn't. So how's that sort of talk about your assessment at that sort of stage? So possibly, but I think if he's there, I think he needs to pick. I do. And also, I don't know if you've seen him, but Kayla Williams and Robert Dunze are on the same flight over to Detroit. They're best pals now. So I think that maybe, he's already putting the strings, Kayla Williams. He's like, come on, get Rome over here.
Danzo, you're back in the clock, mate. You're picking for the New York Jets.
I'm going to go with the best tight end in the draft, quite possibly the best tight end of the last few years. Been likened to looking like an accountant, has a pretty terrible hairline by the looks of it, but I'm going to pick up Brock Bowers in there. The guy seems to have all the skills to pretty much fit in with 90% of any of the NFL teams there. Looks to be an elite tight end who can really shine, I think, in any team he goes to. So I think, again, the Jets are going to pick best player available at that point, and it could well be him.
Again, for me, this is the guy that I'm most excited about in this draft. I think he's possibly the best prospect in the draft, if I'm being honest. Again, is this a guy that might go higher than pick number 10? I don't know. There's an option here for the Jets to go O-line and kind of give Aaron Rodgers some protection, but I think giving Aaron Rodgers another weapon in there at the Jets, especially tight end, you can definitely transform your offense with a guy that can do all. His pass catching abilities been spoken about. If you look at really successful teams around the league, and Smithy, you've mentioned that there, the 49ers have got George Kittle, Chiefs have got Travis Kelce, Lions last year with Sam Laporta, who Danny was really big on when it came to fantasy last year. Just goes to show you, like, you can definitely transform your offense there, whether it's giving your quarterback another weapon, whether it's in the kind of pass protection or run blocking, all these aspects of the position. And I think Brock Bowers is elite. I'm going to stop talking because I could talk all day about him. So I'll hand off to Smithy or John. You pick it up from here.
No, I think you've made good points, mate. I think the league kind of frowns upon taking tight ends so high in the draft, mainly because normally it takes tight ends a while to sort of get into the game. You don't see them come out of the gates in year 1, year 2, because it's such a complex position. They need to literally know every play in the book and stuff. It takes a couple of years for them to sort of get into the game, and also you're paying them. And if you're a rookie contract at pick 10, is you're already paying a top end tight end money at that sort of level. So I think that's to take into consideration. And Kyle Pitts has hardly been making strides, has he? It's been a bit of a disappointment, to be honest with you. It might change this year. I think that what could be key to this is Aaron Rodgers, and if he wants him, I think he's probably got the leverage to be able to sort of drive that pick home. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is what happens.
I'm just going to reiterate everything that people have said. I think he is, for me, one of the three on the top 10 that I've got a big star next to them: Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze, and Brock Bowers, because he looks fantastic. He looks really, really good. I think him linking up with Aaron Rodgers, at the Jets, is going to be a lethal combination. I think after the first 3 picks, everybody will have a little think about it, and it could be a surprise. And equally, just to Smithy's point about tight ends, I've seen some mock draft simulations where he's down at 15th, 16th as well. So, but yeah, exciting talent. I think he's going to be key. And if you look at some of the best teams, that's such a key position, isn't it? If they can get a great tight end to add that additional threat, it seems to make a difference.
Just before we wrap that up, how long's Aaron Rodgers got left to go and draft a young offensive lineman that probably is going to require the same amount of input? And they've not drafted Aaron Rodgers to just float in the middle of the pack. They've drafted this guy to go and try and win another Super Bowl, haven't they? Or to go and try and win a Super Bowl. Sorry, I think that's a guy that gives you an opportunity at that if things work out. And again, it's the beauty of the draft, isn't it? Boys, thanks very much. Some really, really good insight. Felt like a bit like a Bears podcast there with Smithy, so we had to kind of strangle him off that. But no, listen,
He'll be
I think
quiet, Lewis. As the season goes on, he'll get quieter and quieter. So we may as well let him have
That's your hat trick, that is, John.
This is the most Bears chat we'll get this year.
I think that some really good picks. Again, it's the beauty of the draft. Each of these teams have got 5-10 different ways they can go. You just never know with some of the smoke screens that teams are throwing out there, in terms of, oh, they're taking this one for dinner, or they quite like this, or this person's like that tweet, or they've followed this person on Instagram. It just makes the NFL draft such an exciting part of the season, not only for us as fans, but young guys that are going on to kind of fulfil their dreams, isn't it? And hopefully from this draft, it's there is a number of stars to come out of it, because I suppose as much as we all have our own allegiances and our own teams, we do love watching the superstars on a Sunday night, whether it's 6 p.m, 9 p.m, or if any of us are hanging on to the 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock games. We all do love picking that up and watching some of the elite talent that comes through the NFL. So, just a very quick recap. Smithies went first. He's taken USC quarterback Caleb Williams for the Chicago Bears. Danzo, you went second. You've picked up Jaden Daniels out of LSU, known for a wide receiver factory, and I suppose following LSU quarterback Joe Burrow, going pretty high in the draft. Myself, for the Patriots, I've went Drake May. One of these quarterbacks, whether it's him, JJ McCarthy, one of them's got to fall, so we'll see who that is. It's not likely to be Caleb Williams, I think we know that one. And then John, Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr., elite wide receiver, going to help out Kyler Williams. Jim Harbaugh's first opportunity picking for the Chargers. He's going Malik Neighbours in terms of another elite wide receiver coming out of LSU. The Giants, Big Blue, or the G-Men for JK. Potential trade drama there, but again, they look to take Rome Odunze and go down the wide receiver route and give Daniel Jones some opportunity to throw the ball to someone that isn't Saquon Barkley and letting him run a screen 90 yards. The Titans have went all Sandra Bullock, went to protect the blind side of Will Levis and gone Joe Alt. Falcons, John's pick, have went edge with Dallas Turner. The Bears have all the wide receivers are off the board at this point in our mock draft, so Smithy's had to look at the defensive side of the ball and went for Byron Murphy, and then the Jets are finally picking Aaron Rodgers, another weapon for Aaron Rodgers, and giving him Brock Bowers there as well. So that is the A Bunch of Punts very first mock 10 or mock top 10 draft. Really hope you've enjoyed that. Let us know your thoughts on the picks. Who's going to trade up? Who's going to trade down? Who's going to go where? We would really love to hear your thoughts on it there as well. Well, folks, there you have it. The very first official A Bunch of Punts podcast top 10 mock draft. Thanks to all the gents for their time. Thank you guys for listening. Again, tell us where you're watching, where you're going to be watching the NFL draft. Who do you hope your team picks? And again, send us your mock drafts. Let us have a look at them. We've got some draft experts, some GMs on the podcast here, as we like to think. We'll be happy to send you yours out as well, and watch out for our personal ones on the social media. That gives a nice segue. I'm getting great at this hosting. Smithy, tell us where people can find us.
Yeah, so depending on how you're listening to the podcast today, whether you're on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, please rate the show, leave any comments you can do, share the show to anybody you think might enjoy it. And if you're watching on YouTube, likewise, leave us some comments, let us know your thoughts. To Lewis's point, if you're listening to the podcast after the draft, then you're great to be able to call us out on how silly we were on our picks. But also on YouTube, like and subscribe as well to make sure you stay up with when all the shows are coming out. And then be sure to follow us on TikTok at A Bunch of Punts, and on Instagram at A Bunch of Punts Podcasts. We'll keep you up to date, keep you entertained with some content in between our shows. Lots of stuff coming out over the coming week following the fallout from the draft.
Brilliant. Can't wait for the post reaction where we all look absolutely insanely off it with these draft picks. Folks, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next week.